Okay. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the maiden edition and the maiden session for diversity and inclusion for the SPE Ghana. So just to kick off, we'd like to just set a few ground rules. We'll reserve the questions till the end of the session. And I'll just ask everyone on the call to please stay muted until the end, and we can take the questions from there. So just to kick off again, welcome everyone to this maiden session. We can definitely be assured that this is going to be a quite insightful, interesting session. I will just hand over the mic to our moderator for this afternoon. She's the name of Sheena Owusu-Ansang. She is the operations geologist for ENI and currently our DNI or Diversity and Inclusion Chair for the SPE Ghana section. Right. So Sheena, over to you.
Thank you, John, and good afternoon, everyone. Today we have three amazing panelists, and then I'll start off with Mami Ekwa Nikaps. She's a linguist, race and equity consultant, and a cross-culture communication specialist. She's a founder of LingLab Consult, specializing in business communication, diversity, inclusion, and equity training and consultancy. She has extensive experience using linguistics to answer and solve challenges in various disciplines such as science, engineering, technology, and mathematics, and the media. She hosts a weekly Language Matters podcast and is also an academic fellow at Africa No Filter. Mami holds a PhD in linguistics from Queen Mary University of London. Hello, Mami. You're welcome.
Hello, Sheena. Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me this afternoon.
Thank you. Our next panelist is Nixon Amwa Iwa. He's a seasoned HR expert and the managing director of Calvin Clay People Development, a Pan-African human resource consultancy that specializes in HR advisory services, executive recruitment, and leadership development in Africa. As a managing director, Nixon is responsible for providing strategic direction to the business and driving business growth. Nixon has extensive experience in organizational transformation and development, talent management, personality profiling, among other aspects through work in Ghana and the UK. Before joining Calvin Clay, Nixon worked as the head of HR and office services at Talo Ghana Limited, where he led a team of HR professionals to deliver many business transformations and best-in-class HR services. He has also worked with many fast-paced organizations such as Vodafone Ghana, Von Essen, and Antal International Network Ghana. As a senior HR professional, where he implemented effective people strategies to drive business growth. Nixon is a chartered fellow of the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development, and a member of the Chartered Institute of Human Resource Management. He holds a master's degree in oil and gas management and is a trained executive coach. He's also a certified MBTI, EQI, and Insights Discovery practitioner. Hi, Nixon.
Hi, Sheena, and good afternoon to everyone. Very pleased to join the session.
We're pleased to have you. Our final, but definitely not the least, panelist is Mrs. Jennifer B. Boateng. She's an international HR professional with more than 20 years experience in the petroleum and telecommunications sector across the West Africa sub-region and the Middle East. She is currently the HR manager for learning and competency development at the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation. Prior to this, Jennifer worked for Vodafone Qatar and Ghana in various managerial roles, leading several successful business implementations. Her multicultural exposure has provided a platform for a deep appreciation of diversity and inclusion and of the power of endless possibilities. Jennifer is a founding and executive council member of the Women in Energy Ghana, a professional network led by senior women executives, which brings together interested individuals and companies to advance women's leadership and participation in the energy sector. She loves to coach and mentor young women, support groups working with women and disadvantaged children, and she enjoys music and gardening. Jennifer is a mother, an ordained minister, and she's married to an ordained minister. Good afternoon, Jennifer. You're welcome. You would have to.
Gina, I hope you can see my video now.
Yes, we can see and hear you clearly. How are you doing?
But I'm well by God's grace. How are you?
Good. I'm good. So to start off with you, we would like you to give us what diversity is and what inclusion is and what this two means to you.
And by you, you're talking Jennifer, right?
Jennifer, yes, please.
Okay. All right, so good afternoon to you, Sheena, once again, and to my fellow panelists and to our audience. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this D&I, the first of its kind by SPE. D&I, so I think D&I, we've heard it in various forms, in various shapes. We've had discussions around it. We've all tried to find an understanding to it and its place in our lives and in the workspace. And when we talk about diversity, we're talking about any dimension, basically, that you can use to differentiate groups and people from one another. So you're talking age, you're talking nationality, ethnicity, experience, you talk education, gender, sexual orientation. And we say that diversity can be inherent. That is, you're born with it. So your gender, your ethnicity, your age, sexual orientation, it's believed, or it can be acquired. So you can have an acquired diversity. And this comes from experience, from your educational background. For example, what the opportunity to work in a multicultural environment, living in another country, brings to you some acquired diversity, okay? And when we talk diversity, usually we like to talk about 4 types of diversity. So we talk about internal diversity. That's a situation that a person is born into. Things you don't choose for yourself, your race, your ethnicity, your age, your national origin. These are things you cannot change. Then you have your external diversity, another type, which is usually characteristics that are a result of the influences from your surroundings or by other people. So your education, your appearance, sometimes even your religious beliefs, your relationship status, familiar status and all of that. Then the third type that I would mention under diversity is what we call organizational diversity. So we're talking workplace diversity. If you come into any organization, you would find that this is also sometimes called functional diversity, that we relate to people in different ways, okay? By the way that we're organized in the workplace, by a job function, by the place where you work, by whether you're in management or not, your employment status, all of these. Even sometimes your union affiliation is used as a way to diversify a group and to which they belong. The fourth bit is when you put these 3 together, you acquire new experiences as you go on in the world, right? Your views expand. And so we call this the worldwide or the worldview diversity. These are new experiences that you learn about yourselves and other people as you go on in life. And this could be political, your outlook on life, your religious beliefs as well. In fact, when you do a research on diversity, you will find that there's so many things people talk about today. There's so much research out there. 2-dimensional diversity, where you want to see leaders who are exhibiting a combination of these inherent and acquired diversity. Then we come to inclusion. I like to say that inclusion.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
When we talk about inclusion, there's a phrase I like to say, inclusion is a beautiful feeling. So it's actually the practice of ensuring that people feel a sense of belonging, that they receive support from an organization in which they are, right? Inclusion really is an organization's effort and the practice in how it brings these different groupings together, either culturally, socially, where people feel they are accepted, people are welcome, they're treated equally, respectably, people feel they're giving access, to opportunities and resources, and they actually are enabled to contribute fully to the organization's success. So I think for D&I, that's, should I call it a nutshell? I know I've been a bit extensive on it, but your question is, what does D&I mean to me? So what does D&I mean to me, Jennifer? I think as a person, diversity means that I'm surrounded by and I belong to a world that is both exciting and frightening in one breath, okay? Why do I say this? It's a big world with so much variety. It's exciting to know there's so much that exists out there, some of which we're yet to discover anyway. And yet on the back of that is the enormity of living my everyday life to ensure that as a person, what I do, what I say, how I show it makes everyone feel accepted, valued, respected. That's not a small responsibility at all as a person, Then when I come into my professional space as HR, I think diversity means for me that I have the great privilege of harnessing the various diverse personalities and experiences that exist in our world. It means talent optimization for me, right, as an HR professional. And inclusion means then that I have the responsibility as an HR professional to create a workspace that is safe, secure, and enjoyable for every individual, where people experience a level of support, energy, commitment from each other. And then as a leader, I think that D&I means that I'm aware of and that I create the opportunities for organizational growth through the competitive advantage that exists in our world of diversity and inclusion. So this in a nutshell is what D&I is and what it means to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was a good one. Nixon, would want your take on this as well.
All right, so I think Jennifer has said a lot about diversity and inclusion, and redefining diversity would mean repeating almost everything that Jennifer has said, so I wouldn't want to do that. What I would want to add on to what she has said is that sometimes in the inclusion part of things, okay, let me start from the diversity. From the diversity side of things, in terms of what it means for me, it is in terms of everything Jennifer has said, how you reflect the different personalities, the different traits, different characteristics of people within a team that mimics what you have in our society. So if you are talking about the work settings, making sure that for the people that we have around us, we do reflect same in our organizations. And for the customers that we serve, we do reflect same in our organizations as well. So bringing it to the workplace, that is what I would say. In terms of inclusion, some of the things are very obvious, like race, like gender, like nationality, which people you can easily pick and you know, but some of them are not. And as a result, dealing with the ones that are very obvious tend to be seen, tend to be driven, tend to have targets, but the ones that we don't see, which as we go along, we will talk about, which creates unconscious bias in the way we think and in the way we act and our behavior towards people, and which sometimes lead to what we call the micro iniquities, the microaggressions, which we'll discuss as we go along. So for me, D&I simply means reflecting what you have in our society at the workplace, for the workplace for me. And then inclusion basically means making sure that everything, no matter who a person is, the person feels respected, feels belonged, feels celebrated, is not ashamed or marginalized for who he or she is. And that is beholds on us as professional HR person, as myself, making sure that the structures that we have in place do support all these things that I've said. So not redefining everything Jennifer has said, that's a bit that I will add on to it.
Thank you, Nixon. Yeah, the sense of belonging. And then Mami Nikat would give us also your take on diversity and inclusion.
Well, I think there isn't much to be said after those brilliant presentations by Jennifer and Nixon, but I'll just say that diversity to me represents we're talking about representation, finding people with different identities coexisting in a particular space, you know. And for inclusion, I'll say creating that space where people can bring their identities or their authentic selves without being judged, and then also creating the environment for them to feel respected. Yeah, so in a nutshell, I'll say that both go hand in hand. You cannot have diversity and not consider or not talk about inclusion. Then you're better off not having diversity, you know. And I think these are very key. So what it means to me that in this day and age is the key to success in every workforce, you know, and it's just a way that we have to think about living and live if we are not living that way already. So I think I'll just leave it like that. But there are two beautiful concepts that can be challenging as well, you know, especially when it comes to the unconscious bits, things that we've done for so long and we don't even question, you know, and going back to sometimes unlearn some of these practices, but it can be done and it's doable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mommy. In the course of the program, I hope to know what those unconscious bias are. So, Jenny, if I want to ask you, why are we suddenly, or why are companies now talking more about diversity and inclusion? What is in it for the companies? Why are more and more companies talking about this these days?
Okay, Sheena, so I think it's not a recent conversation. I think it's a conversation that's been going on for a very long time, right? So, I mean, I've been in that space for a very long time, thanks to the various organizations that I've had the opportunity to work with. So it's not such a new conversation. People have been talking about it in different areas, you know, and in different aspects of life. So there's always been the talk about gender and the talk about race or ethnicity. It's been ongoing now. I think the reason we're hearing it now is because it's become louder and it's come closer home to us now, you know, as the world has become a global village. And so suddenly we hear a lot more of these discussions and we don't have any other choice but once again, as human beings seeking to belong, to start to have those conversations, you know, in our own part of the world. I think also that the reason why I think we're talking about it even more now is because E&I has moved beyond gender and ethnicity, and it's become, you know, a discussion that encompasses a lot more than gender and diversity, and gender and ethnicity. And so, you know, you're having these discussions currently, you know, at even the national level, we're having these discussions. Remember also that workplaces are no longer confined to an open space. It's no longer one geographical location where you are. And so conversations that were once limited to a small office space, a small geographical location, is now everywhere. And so you're hearing more of it and you're experiencing more of it. And I think a lot of research has gone into it and people are reading. Technology has given us access to everything out there. And so suddenly we become more aware about, you know, D&I. And so why is it important in the workplace? You ask, why are organizations talking about it? I think initially D&I was driven mainly by social motivation, right? People thought it was a good to have. You tick a box, I mean, you show that you're doing something in your organization. But I think over the time, it's become clear that D&I is just more than a social requirement. So it's got economic values, it's got commercial values, you know, and if you're an organization, you're talking about bottom line, D&I makes a big difference in there. So we're talking more about it in the workplace because of the value and the benefits that it brings to us in an organization. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Nixon, I want to know so the companies are talking about this. We as employees, how does this benefit us in any way?
So it's enormous. I think Jennifer has elaborated on the company side. The only one bit I will add on to it is that it spurs innovations a lot, where you have diversity of thought, diversity in a workplace. Being able to innovate is very easy. But to your direct question of the employee, how does it matter to me? Jennifer mentioned that in the introduction, that when you work in a multicultural environment, you build certain skills, certain knowledge that ordinarily you wouldn't have. And it's all down to what you learn from people of diverse cultures, of diverse personality, of diverse gender. how would I know how a lady will think, or if let's say I'm serving a customer and I am a man, how would I best serve the customer if I don't have a lady in my team who is able to give me insight into how the things I'm doing will be appreciated? So the thing, or if you put all together, how it comes down to is the professional growth that you get from being in a multicultural environment. You really learn a lot and you really get a lot from people around you. The second bit I would say is that by the fact that the company grows, the bottom line grows, the financial of the company. In fact, in the research that was done by Boston Consulting, they found out that companies that have got higher diversity at the leadership level tend to be 33% more profitable than those that did not show higher diversity. So if you are in such a company where diversity is high and productivity is high, the bottom line is high, and for that matter, you are having a good bonus, because you know our bonuses are linked to the productivity of the business. You get the money and you also benefit financially. So it's not just the company that benefits financially, but you as an employee also benefits financially from it as well. And then the last one I will add on to it is that it makes us better people as individuals. When in every society you go, it's a mixture of different people. Even within the same broad category, if I say I am a man, he is a man, we have our own unique characteristics. So we are not the same. So learning to appreciate and then being able to coexist and work together in a diverse settings helps you to be a better person. Appreciate things from people's perspective, and then see how best you can really use that understanding to build and foster good relationship with people around you to develop a cause. So those are the key things that as an employee, you stand to benefit if you happen to be in a diverse environment and you take advantage to make yourself inclusive in that environment.
Thank you so much. Mommy, talking to some people, they are like, oh, when you work outside of Ghana, you experience more diversity and all that. But here in Ghana, oh, we are all Ghanaians, which for me, I feel is we are all Ghanaians, but there's still some diversity. So bringing it to working in Ghanaian environment and all that, how so different is it compared to working outside the country? What are some of the things apart from the tribes and all that shows how diverse we are in the office and also can help employees and the company at large?
Thank you. I mean, that's definitely a fallacy, like you've stated, to say that we are Ghanaians, so we are the same. We are definitely not the same. I mean, intellectually, cognitively, and demographically, we are not the same. And you've touched on things like ethnicity, meaning that we come from different backgrounds. And, you know, something like ethnicity, for example, feeds into how we use language and how we even speak and understand each other in the workplace, you know. So yes, definitely. When you're working in the UK or the US, you tend to people coming from different parts of the world. So race becomes a huge factor in that sort of environment. But you wouldn't have it so much so here in Ghana. But even that, we have some foreign nationals amongst us who work with companies like Talo and all those other organizations. So yes, I think the main thing is that diversity, working in Ghana and working outside, there are different parameters, and mainly because how diversity operates and is operationalized is influenced by the context, you know. So in our case, for example, I mean, we all know that when it comes to sexual orientation, our law doesn't permit certain things. So you don't expect that you cannot operate outside the law or the regulations of a state in which you are working in. So definitely what diversity is to someone working in Europe and to someone working in Ghana. But like I said, I mean, if you look at language alone, you know, and how we judge people based on the way they speak, somebody speaks, that person has an Ewe or a Northern accent or an Ashanti accent, and immediately we make a judgment, we make a connection. This person is like this person is so. And all these things affect. And so that we are talking about inclusion there, you know, we make people feel as if they're not part of us because they belong to a different tribe or they have a very different accent or they pronounce words in a very different way. So yes, diversity is contextual. I'll say that it's driven by context. both the big, I'll say the geographical context, and then the context of the organizations in which we are working in as well. So these are things that we need to be mindful of. But to say that because we are Ghanaians, no, we don't speak the same. We don't come from. We attend different schools. You know, there are certain schools that if you attend in Ghana and you're looking for a job, I mean, Jennifer, for example, and if you're an HR person, and certain schools carry a certain sort of clout, you know, and can give people an advantage over others who don't attend some of these schools. So definitely there are so many things, although we are one people, so many things that distinguish us from each other. And if we don't pay attention to them, then we will not be able to reap the benefits of diversity and inclusion that we need in the workplace.
Thank you. It's good you mentioned on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Shina, can I add a little to what Mami just said? So I think as Mami said, in terms of the workplace in Ghana, I don't think you can make an exclusive statement and say, if you are working in Ghana, you are not working in a diverse environment. If you have worked in Talo, I'll give 2 examples. So Vodafone, which Jennifer and I worked there together, when we joined, it was very cosmopolitan, very, very cosmopolitan, more outsiders and a lot more outsiders, non-Ghanaians in the company. If you take Talo, before I left Talo in December, we had about 21 nationalities, 21 different nationalities, which formed roughly about 35% of the workforce in Talo. So it was very, very diverse. But if you look at it globally, diversity, there are 2 elements that people talk about mostly, and it covers everywhere: gender and then ability or disability. Those ones cover everywhere, irrespective of geographic location, they will talk about it. But depending on where you are, if it is a cosmopolitan area, like if you go to London where the society is very cosmopolitan, New York, you go to Singapore, very cosmopolitan, so race becomes a huge issue. In Ghana, we are talking about gender. When we are talking about race and nationality, we draw much on ethnicity rather. And it makes sense because we are not too cosmopolitan as you will find in the UK, in the New York, in Singapore. So we will talk about the ethnicity, we will talk about the religion because the person is a Muslim. So, I mean, why would I give it to a Muslim, or why would I give it to a Christian? Or he's a Christian, that's why he's behaving that way. Then you begin to see from, in a different context, as Mami said. So diversity is everywhere, but the focus can vary depending on where you find yourself.
Thank you so much. You mentioned gender during your submission, and you talked to some people and they are of the view that once you mention diversity and inclusion, they feel it's more geared towards the increasing of female representation. Is this correct?
Who is that for? Is it Nixon?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay, you can take it, Mami.
Okay.
Well, I think female representation is key. It's an important thing, especially in our part of the world. We still have a long way to go. You know, if you take an organization, for example, if you look at the grassroots, you might find lots of females there. But when we move upward and we're looking at the C-suite, then you realize that the number of females are quite few. So it is an important thing, but it is not the only thing that we need to consider when we talk about diversity and inclusion. So religion, for example, is one. You know, we talk about race, which is not too relevant in our context, or ethnicity, which is very relevant in our context. So these are other things that we are very much on top of the agenda. If you go to a place like UK, where the government has come up with a specific law and say you cannot discriminate against somebody based on their race, based on their disability, based on marriage, you know, 9 characteristics, then those are the things that organizations are looking towards to. So I'm not sure about the situation in Ghana if we have a law that explicitly says that you cannot discriminate against someone based on A, B, C, D, you know, but if we are not there yet, or if that's something we need to be talking about. But I think Jennifer and Nixon can speak better to that than I can. But so yes, definitely it moves beyond female representation. It is still key on the agenda and it must be, but it's not the only thing.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, so let me add a bit to that. And it's true. I mean, the female representation continues to be a hot topic for discussion, okay? The DNI, I mean, DNI continues to evolve. It's a journey. Different countries are at different levels on the journey. I said initially there was a time when DNI was really all about gender and ethnicity. And Nixon has said in our part of the world, we talk gender, we talk disability. It's a conversation that's everywhere. In some places, the conversation is quite long gone past gender, female representation. But in Ghana, yes, gender and specifically female representation is a key focus area for us. I work in the energy sector. The statistics don't look good. In the technology space, it's the same. There's a reason why we keep pushing STEM, for females, because we don't have the women in there. And there's even an underrepresentation of women, and it gets worse as you go up in the corporate ladder. My chief executive was speaking recently, Dr. K.K. Sapon. He was speaking recently at the FIT CEO Summit, right? And he actually mentioned the need for more competent women at the board level, because we're resetting corporate governance agenda post-pandemic. He spoke about the need for women to be part of the board, that we must be deliberate because there's something the women bring to the table, a certain firmness, a certain moderating influence that they bring into boardroom discussions. And there's been lots of research. There's one by, I think, Watson and some others, Watson et al. 2015. It talks about the power of parity and how advancing women's equality can actually add to global growth, and the figures are just incredible. It says that if we were able to increase the women's labor force participation compared to men, we would actually be able to increase our GDP in 2025 by 26%. Now, our SDG 5 is very specific, gender equality, and it says specifically achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. So this is still relevant to us today. And I know my colleagues have said it, that is not just this, but female representation continues to be very critical in our conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think, Jennifer, to add a bit to the statistics, if you look at the energy sector, less than a quarter of the global workforce is made up of women.
Yeah.
So specifically about 22% of the workforce working in the oil and gas sector are women. And as Sheena and Jennifer mentioned, at the base, there are a lot. At the base, it's about 27%. If you go to the senior management to director level, you have only 17%. And guess what? At the CEO level, how many? 1%. If you are to scan right now, just Google, and you see how many of the top super majors are using a woman CEO. So it's something, the conversation that we need to have. Because at the base we have not enough, and as you grow, it even diminishes. So we need to find a way as institutions to build that and make sure that we are able to transition people and women who join at the base to grow through the ladder and become the CEO of a company, because they bring different dimensions. Women bring different dimensions, so as minorities like us, and if you go to if you are looking at it from global sense of things, and so as any diverse group that you have in the organization. In terms of the law that Sheena mentioned, Ghana we have, if you look at if you look at part 5 and part 6 of the Ghana Labour Act, that's Act 651, it talks purely about gender, it talks purely about disability, how they are protected and how we should ensure equity and equality within the workplace. So you can look at it if you are interested to look at the details.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nixon. So in doing all this, I want to ask Jennifer, especially you as a hiring manager and HR, do you sometimes intentionally hire someone for a particular role? Let's say someone from a minority group in terms of gender, tribe, or well, our side, we don't really have race much, so try someone for a particular role who is less qualified for that role, but because the person is in the minority, so you still hire such a person.
That's a very interesting question, Sheena. And I know that whenever we're discussing D&I, that question comes up. Do you hire just for the sake of meeting your numbers, your quotas, and all of that? And I say it's important to know that D&I is never a recipe for accepting mediocrity or for promoting non-performance. That should always be clear. D&I does not promote accepting mediocrity or non-performance. I think what D&I seeks to do in that space is to create the responsibility of looking deeper than you normally would, right? In HR, we say something, we say that what gets measured gets done. And because I have set qualitative and quantitative measures that need to be considered, for example, in a hiring, my hiring manager is forced to look beyond where they normally would, the familiar groupings, I should call them, that they are used to doing, right? And they are compelled to broaden and diversify the pool of individuals that they are hiring from. And so when we talk about the need to promote D&I, diversity in our workforce, whether age, whether gender, sexual orientation, religious background, irrespective of that, we're not saying just go out there and hire anybody because they tick that box. There are a set of criteria that we put out there, and you must ensure that people meet these. But beyond where you normally would look, we're compelling you to say, you know what, look beyond where you always look. Look deeper, search wider, be broader in your outlook. And actually, because you know, as a hiring manager, as HR, that you're forced to do that, you open yourself up to broader areas that you otherwise would have missed. So no, when we're hiring, we don't just say tick a box because it helps us to look good. You know, like I said, it's gone beyond the social requirement or social motivation to do D&I. It's come into that commercial space. It's come into that economic space where it makes a difference. And so whoever you're bringing must be poised to make a difference.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Not about D&I, is not about mediocrity. Yes, I like that. So what about disability? Nixon, what's your take on this? When you have to hire somebody who is disabled, what are some of the things that companies have to do intentionally to include these people?
Okay, I think it's not different from what Jennifer described. My thoughts are the same as Jennifer's. It's not about getting just somebody, a woman, somebody with disability in a position. It's about finding a suitable woman, a suitable disabled person into a position. And it's about looking. So once you look hard, you will find, because you cannot tell me that there is no person with physical disability who has got the requisite skill, requisite knowledge, requisite experience to do a particular job. You just have to look hard and you'll find. So I also don't subscribe to it, but that notwithstanding, we have had several instances where as part of business reviews, we would say we are protecting a particular minority because of whatever they carry. So in the case of disability, I've had reasons through my business reviews in the past to say for this individual, we are not touching, simply because the person has got a physical disability. And as a company, we've gone extra mile to provide infrastructure and other things to support the individual to be more productive. And so it wouldn't be wise for us to let the person go. Would we put them in the same pool as everybody? Sometimes we don't. But when I'm looking, I don't favor, I don't say I'm going to, because I need a disabled person, so I'm going to pick the person who doesn't qualify and put the person into position. I will look for a qualified person with physical disability and then put into the position.
Thank you so much. Jennifer, you are, sorry, Mami, you are in the academia space. I believe it's not so different from what Nixon said.
Definitely. It's not different, but it's especially if you live outside. Like I studied in the UK, and I'm sure Nixon would probably share a similar experience. That is, once you are a Black person in academia, there are certain sets of hurdles and challenges that you need to overcome to be able to get to. I mean, if you look at even professorship, for example, whether male or female, Blacks percentage is nothing to write home about. As for the females, don't even go there at all. You know, so I don't think universities would. What they are doing now is creating opportunities. So creating different funding routes for people of color, people from other backgrounds, so that we can go through that competitive route and also gain admission into their institutions, you know, rather than what they were doing initially and putting all of us on the same pedestal. So now you find funding applications that will say we encourage people from minority backgrounds, people from we encourage Black women, all these sort of things just to get us on board. But definitely they are not. You need to be able to qualify. You need to be able to meet all the criteria before they'll give you the nod. So it's not just up for picking. And one point that I want to add that I think is crucial. So when we talk about disability, for example, in the workplace, yes, organizations are making the efforts to hire people with disabilities. The question is, are we making them included? Even women who are in the STEM environment, do they feel included in the workforce? You know, and these are things that we need to move the conversation beyond just hiring them and having them in the workspace to ensuring that they are included, you know. And one of the things we can do is just find out from them. The women are in the offices. The people with this. So using the word like the disabled, it's problematic. So rather say people with disabilities, you know, and these little things that make people feel excluded, we need to start paying attention to some of them. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let me add a bit to the disability because I think it's such a deep conversation that we need to have. And what Mami says is so true. The fact that we're bringing them in is not just what is expected. The inclusiveness is so important. You know, people with disabilities, and there are different types of disability, right? And different percentages or levels of disability. They face so many barriers to employment. The attitude of people, what people believe about people with disabilities, you know, and how we even engage people with disability. There's a lot that needs to go into making them inclusive. It's not easy. There's no organization that may find it easy to do that. But you see, it is important that we include them because they have a lot to bring to the table. Nixon talked about innovation, how to reach other people with disabilities, you know, because they know best what goes on in their space. And so we need to do a lot more. Look, our physical environment needs to be conducive for them. We need to create access for them. Simple things like the workstations that they will set out to work. All of these need to be taking into consideration. The type of job we carve out for someone with a disability is so important. Is it easy? No, but we can, you know, put together a range of abilities and we can work around it to make sure that they are included. Flexible work is important. The actual design of work, you know, and like Mami said, consult them. What works for them? What doesn't work for them? Don't make assumptions for them and say, oh, we know what works best in this space, and so we're going to propose it. It is so important that we look into how we make people with disability included in the way that we work.
Yeah, and Sheila, I just want to add quickly that we haven't even touched on neurodiversity. You know, we tend to concentrate on the physical things that we see. Yeah, but people who have autism, you know, autistic people, all those things, people, the dyslexia, for example, you know, how they read, that affects what they do, how they do the work and how we interact with them, and constantly making them feel as if they don't match up. You know, so the disability is really a key one that we need to consider and explore all the other variations that come with that subject as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, that's the autism, dyslexia, and all that are so many things that people just look at the physical aspect. That's very true. Jennifer, you're an ordained minister, married to an ordained minister. Talking about inclusiveness, there's something that you realize, especially in our Ghanaian corporate organizations. They organize an event, you go, and it is strictly corporate, nothing to do with any religious anything. And then at the start of the program, we are asked, let us pray. We have Muslims, we have atheists, we have Buddhists, we have several people in the organizations. So why do we do this? Especially, I've seen this mostly in Ghana. I've not really experienced it out there. Is this right in trying to make people feel included in the workplace? Is this correct or is this right?
I know you'd like to hear a yes or a no, right? From a minister to say, is this right or is this wrong? Listen, I've come to realize that it's important to recognize that we call ourselves a secular state. It's a way of creating an inclusive space for everyone because we have, varied religions and religious groupings and non-religious as well in the space. And so we're creating an inclusive space where everyone feels a sense of belonging and acceptance. But you see, in all of this, there's something that I've come to realize about us as a people. And this has nothing to do with religion. We have a certain sense of spirituality as a people. And it's something that we cannot deny. And I've come to realize from my experience that in Ghana, prayer is a way that we express our spirituality. Don't confuse spirituality with Christianity, because sometimes when we talk spirituality, we're thinking, oh, we're talking about Christians. In Ghana, when we do prayers, we do Christian prayers, we do Islamic prayers, we do traditional prayers. It's for us a way of expressing our spiritual diversity. And you cannot deny this as for us as a nation. It's important that as we have the D&I conversations, right, that the context, and Mami mentioned it, it's so very, very important for us, where we are as a nation and where we're developing towards. I believe that for us as Ghanaians, a way of expressing our spiritual diversity is through prayer. And prayer is not restricted in my mind to Christian prayer, even though I am an ordained minister. It's also the Islamic prayers you see. It's also the traditional prayers that we would have at our functions. This is for us our creation of inclusiveness, to bring to the fore our sense of spirituality.
Do we even need to do that at all before we start the program? Can we not, especially if it's a corporate program and it's not on the Ghana level?
Can I say that? Yeah, so I mentioned context, and I talked about the geographical context, the national context, and then the institutional context as well. And if you look into our institutions, most institutions, you see that the leaders or founders are predominantly Christians. So is the context, that is not to say it's not problematic, because now we have Muslims in the workplace, we have people from other religions in the workplace, and all of these voices. So we need to say that the point is not to say we need to stop having the prayers, but we need to say that let's open it up and have all the other forms of prayers that are represented in the workplace. That should be the goal, but currently it's just been driven by the culture or the understanding of those in leadership in most of these organizations that people are working with. That is my take on that. I don't know what Nixon thinks.
Yeah. So, but I also think same. The only bit I would say is that I look at it from two angles. One, are the people comfortable with what they are doing? If the group is comfortable with having prayers, then for me, I don't think it is wrong for us to sit here, and it would be wrong for us to sit here and say that is wrong, because it works for the group. On the second angle, I would say is that so long as it covers everybody, every time it is not a Christian prayer, every time it's not a Christian prayer, but you offer a Christian prayer, the next time you offer a Muslim, next time you offer a Buddhist, whichever forms, to reflect everybody's religion or spiritual orientation within the group, and the group is fine. I think it's okay. I would not give a straight yes or no answer. We are talking about inclusiveness. So if you prevent people from practicing their religion, are you creating an inclusive environment? That would be the question. If it is no, then why don't let them practice, but make sure everybody's one is reflected in there. And that would be what I would say. I've seen where groups, I've been in groups where you go into meetings and we pray. And in those meetings, actually, Jennifer and myself have been in one team where we'll start the meeting with a prayer. And we had Muslims in there, and in 1 week we will do a Christian prayer, another time it will be a Muslim prayer. And when a Muslim, I am a Christian, when a Muslim is praying, I don't have any issue with it, because the person is expressing his spirituality. If everybody in the group feels that we must pray before we start, then so we do it. So I don't think we should be expecting a no or yes answer. It should be what works for the group, and it should be what will create an inclusive environment for all the group.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So currently, there's been a debate, or there's been a bill before before Parliament on passing the law on LGBTQ. And our corporate bodies also have policies of not discriminating against someone's race or gender or sexual orientation. So how do you bring in the two? Should the government go ahead, or should Parliament go ahead to pass that bill on LGBTQ? And then somebody comes looking for a job with this background. Are you going to deny the person a job based on that? Or how does the two work? Nixon?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. All right, so it's a very interesting topic, and I think it has generated the needed debate within the national settings. For me, diversity, everything we do is governed by law. We have got regulations, we've got statutes that govern the nation. So if it is prohibited, to the extent that it is prohibited, I would say don't do it. I will give you an example. So one time when I was in Talo, we hired someone. Actually, we interviewed the person. I did the interview with the line manager. After the interview, the line manager, he was a white gentleman. So he came to me and said, Nixon, some people are saying that gentleman we spoke to is a gay. And my question to him was, have you seen him as a gay, or has he got a gay partner? And he said, no. So I told him, okay, wait, put the gay aside. Is he competent to do the work? Has he got the skills to do the work? And he said, yeah, he's got the skills. I think he's got the skills. You also think he's got the skills. What I can do is to do a bit of a background check. I had a bit of a discussion with the individual, just a casual conversation about life and those things. And he indicated to me as part of the conversation that, he was married, he's got 2 children. And but somebody looked at the physical appearance and told the manager that this is a gay. So for me, we shouldn't be discriminating against people, but any practice that is frowned upon by law should also not be entertained and should not be encouraged. We have to create an environment, unless somebody comes and say, me, I am a gay and I'm promoting gayism because that's what the law is against, then it becomes an issue. But other than that, once I am recruiting, I'm looking for somebody who has got a skill, who has got a competency, who has got what is required to do the role, irrespective of the color, irrespective of the gender, irrespective of the race, irrespective of the spiritual belief, the sexual orientation. What I'm looking for is the person fit to do the role. When I'm promoting somebody, is the same consideration. Is the person fit to do the role? And to that context, I don't see how the law bars me from doing that. And for that matter, we would. What I believe will be an issue is where you have people promoting gayism. Let's say I have set up a gay society within the workforce. That will be infringing on the law as we are seeing it now. There are things that are not infringed. If you go to Talo today, because of some work we did, they have got multi-faith room where every person, irrespective of your faith, you can go there and pray during the time. And we accept that, it is fine. We have also got a lactating mother's room where a woman who has just given birth can go in there and then express from time to time, because we know the challenges that come with it. And it is fine. But what we cannot do is maybe we've set up a room for gay and lesbians. And that one, I believe, will be a big issue. But as to how they rise through the rank, I mean, it's purely on merit, purely merit-based.
Thank you so much. I think that is pretty clear and straight to the point. So I'll take some questions from the chat box, and then we are almost running out of time. So I'll just go quickly. Somebody wants to find out, does Ghana have policies around diversity and inclusion in Ghana? Any one of you can take it, please.
I think Nixon mentioned that there's a law that makes provision that you can't discriminate against someone based on disability or gender. So yes, currently within our legal frame, there is something that would work with.
Okay.
The Constitution is very clear. The Constitution ensures equity and then equality, irrespective of race, religion, gender. It specifies all the things we've spoken about. And then if you go to the labor law, as I said, part 5 talks about disability, part 6 talks about gender, and it protects the rights of all these 2 categories of minority. I won't say minority because women are not in minority, but protected groups.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does another question here on, okay, I think we already discussed this. There was your opinion about D&I KPIs on organization helping people in the minority, but I think we discussed all this earlier on during the submission. So somebody wants to know, shouldn't we be talking about gender equity? I think, Jennifer, you should take that. Shouldn't the conversation now be on gender equity? Hi, Jennifer. Hello.
Oh, she's on mute. Jennifer,
Yeah.
you're on mute.
Jennifer. Jennifer, you'd have to unmute yourself. No, we can't
you're
hear
still
you.
on mute.
Okay. Jennifer, can you unmute yourself?
Maybe we can step in.
Okay,
as
we can. Yes, somebody
yeah,
can answer that
Jennifer sort out
question
here.
so that.
Yeah, I think it's a very valid question the person has asked. When we started the diversity conversation in Talo, for instance, one key thing that came up was, I'm a white male. You are talking about people of color. You are talking about women. What happens to me? Are you asking me not to be in the company? What is the future for me within the company? And it's a very valid question. And for me, what we are talking about is providing equal opportunity. Yeah, we can hear you now, Jennifer. It's about providing equal opportunity to all. So if you're looking at it from providing equal opportunity to all, then of course we are talking about equity. Because even if you read the law, is in terms of equity, it talks about equal work for equal pay. It talks about providing equal opportunity, if it is employment, if it is promotion, to all, irrespective of background. So the agenda for the D&I agenda is not an affirmative action where we say we are getting 20% and irrespective of what is required, whether the people are qualified or not qualified, we are getting 20 women in the organization. What that we are saying is that we should have a good representation of all genders that reflect what we have within our society. If you come to Ghana, for instance, now the population is about 50-50. So if you are reflecting your society, then you'll be looking at 50-50. But we know in the STEM.
Yes, we can hear you, Jennifer.
Yeah. In a STEM environment, it is very difficult to attain that because the foundation has not been set. And that's why you find nowadays the companies are focusing on the foundation, making sure STEM, girls' education in the STEM is very high. We are promoting STEM education at the lower level so that it can be risen through the ranks. And when they get to the university, they will study science-related course and be found in the industry like the oil and gas, which we are in, and then all the technology industries as well. So it starts from the foundation. But to answer the question, equity is what everybody is looking for. But some people have been disadvantaged for so long that you have to put in a bit of effort to make them to be at par. And that is what we are talking about.
Okay, Sheila, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I think we'll take, unfortunately, we ran out of time, so we'll take each individual's final take on the topic so that we can close, because we actually have reached our mark.
Okay,
So
I think
okay.
I like the point that Nixon made on his previous submission that we are talking about equity, but there are some groups that need special attention so that they can be at par. And I think that is very critical to the discussion that we are having this afternoon. Yes, diversity is good, and without inclusion, then diversity doesn't really work, or it doesn't really benefit the company, or it won't bring in the results that organizations desire to see. But there are concrete steps. Unfortunately, it's not just a tick box process. You know, There are specific things. Companies need to be intentional in that. And in as much as we say that, so I'll use the Black Lives Matter, for example, when all that happened. There were some white people too who were saying that white lives matter. Yes, white and Black lives matter. But unfortunately, Black people are ages and way behind white people. So the society needs to take intentional steps to bring these groups apart. And that is what we are talking about here. Identifying the gaps and taking the necessary steps to bridge the gap. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer, we'll have your final.
Okay. Sorry about the break. There was another meeting of performance management that started on my laptop.
Okay.
So kind of cut me off. Okay. So I think it's been a very interesting discussion this afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity. We've often talked about and asked ourselves, is D&I really beneficial? Yes, D&I is important, and it's a critical discussion that we need to keep having. D&I is important in our workplace. We need to appreciate, and we've discussed that at length, that there are diverse pool of people that are around us, and we need to create the environment that fosters a sense of belonging. Because really what it does is that it improves our organizations. It creates a workplace where people feel that they're supported, they can achieve, it creates a work-life balance. It helps to reduce biases for employees. And so focusing on discussing and actually building a culture of diversity and inclusiveness is very key to the progress of our organizations and for our society as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Next, Ben.
Yeah, so the only thing I would say is that D&I is very beneficial to both the organization and then to we, the employees. So as much as possible, we should try as employees. I think what the organization does is what the organization does. But for us as employees, whether you are a manager or you are a non-manager, you've also got a role to play. If you're a manager, when you are selecting into your teams, when you are picking people, make sure you pick a diverse team because it adds value to your team. If you are an employee, also make sure that your actions and inactions create an inclusive environment for other people to thrive. Don't be doing things that will drive other people away because you are only in the long run hurting yourself and hurting the business that you work for. We should all live as one. That's the only way we can get value from each other.
Thank you so very much. My very good submissions from all three of you. And we had so many questions but time will not allow us. I hope we'll all continue the conversations in our various offices and with our various managers, HRs and everything. So I would hand over to John to close the. John?
Hello. Hi, everyone. I think this was a very interesting session. Thanks to all the panelists who came on and were able to give us very insightful views on diversity and inclusion at the workplace. Some very key takeaways from me on this that was mentioned by some of the panelists was the fact that D&I is a journey, right? The fact that D&I is a journey and also goes beyond gender and ability and actually evolves. We as a people also need to evolve at the workplace. We need to think differently about it. We need to think differently about inclusion, right? And the one thing that I've also picked up from this session, very interesting, was that we all have biases, right, within ourselves. And we must be deliberate to understand that these biases can sometimes inform certain decisions that we make. And by having that awareness in itself, sort of also adds value to our workplace and adds value to our lives. So thank you very much, the panelists, for your time. Thank you very much for being on board, for answering all of these questions. Thank you, Sheena, for the wonderful moderation amongst everybody else. And we have put on the chat a link to the feedback form. We'd really appreciate it if you could go away and click on that link, provide us some feedback based on this maiden session that we've had. And it's a learning curve, right, to see how best we can improve on our next session. So please do that, and also look forward to another session on the SPE platform that will be done by Graham Mensah Wilmot, who's an astute retired petroleum engineer from Chevron. Details of the program will be provided later on, but it will take place sometime in September and will be communicated to all. We also urge everyone who's on to join SPE, to pay your membership dues, join SPE, and there are a lot more such programs that you can definitely benefit from. Thank you, and have a good afternoon.